Peace. This is the Wise OG back with a live broadcast, family. Just for the men, because we as men definitely need some direction. We need discipline. We need respect, consistency, all the core things that back in the day we as men were taught to embody, but somehow got lost, you know, in the sauce, so to speak. Well, family, I hope everyone is well. I hope you're at peace. I hope that you are, in fact, living your best life, so to speak. What I want to talk about today is very important. Naturally, I believe all of these broadcasts are important. This one is particularly important because it speaks to an issue that many of us, unfortunately, are not winning at. And this has to change. The issue, of course, that I'm talking about is this issue of violence. And specifically, the messaging we got as boys. Sometimes from people that loved us, like our dads and our uncles, my grandfathers, and brothers in the street, and our elders in the community. The messaging we got that, being a man meant we're supposed to be hyper violent. We're supposed to be bout it. We're supposed to be busting guns and knocking brothers out. And, we were taught that women like that. And unfortunately, some do. Unfortunately, they were taught wrong as well. Got all these brothers 6 feet under and in jail, having nightmares about bodies that they put into the earth because of the miseducation we received, often at the hands, again, of people that loved us who themselves didn't know better, right? We're going to talk about that today, young men, because the whole point of the Wise OG channel is to make sure that we're not reproducing anything in our lives that's unhealthy, that's toxic. To make sure that we're moving forward with power and peace and dignity and responsibility. Because if you look around, I don't know about you, but in my community, I can see we need more men stepping up to the plate, returning to their rightful place on their throne, just as our sisters need to do. But this is for men, so I'm talking to you. We have to return to our place on the throne where we are respected, our authority is listened to, and not just listened to, but implemented. But to do that, we got to make sure that what we're saying comes from a wise and righteous place, right? Okay, I'm going to take a minute. I want to make sure. Okay, good. So to do a check. All right, family, let us begin. And let me also say, I want to thank all of you brothers, you young men. Some of you, from what I see in the statistics I get, are over 40, 50, which is great. I see many of you are in your 20s, and I'm really happy to see that, because you all being part of what they call Generation Z or Gen Z are very important. I know that many of the elders, are critical of you and stuff, but you're very important. You're important to your communities, to your families, and to the planet, because you're at that age where you're young enough to still make some mistakes, have time to figure it out and correct them. You're young enough where you still have the requisite energy and hope and optimism. You're not jaded and bitter yet. Hopefully, you're not walking around talking about what you can't do and this will never happen. You still hopefully have that youthful optimism, right? And you're young enough to have the energy to apply a lot of what we're going to be talking about. Sometimes we get older and we just get into this thing of, because we're this age, that means that we can't have that youthful energy and optimism, which I, of course, disagree with. But some people feel like that. They feel like, you know what? I'm 60, 70, you know, I don't have the time and energy for that. And that's all in your mind. So the fact that we're reaching 20-year-olds, 20 somethings is so important to me. And I'm very grateful that you all are giving me your time and energy. That said, let's jump right into it, shall we? Today's topic, family, is why violence is destroying our men and what real masculinity actually looks like and acts like, right? I want to talk man to man. Today's conversation might make you somewhat uncomfortable, but sometimes you feeling uncomfortable is just a sign that what you're hearing is important and necessary. And I want to say from the jump, I don't come from the blame and shame school of thought. I'm not here to shame anybody. Much of what I say in these broadcasts comes from reflecting on my own life, mistakes I've made, ignorance that I believed or acted on, dumb decisions I made, bad choices, feeling I had to be a certain way because quite honestly, I wasn't taught that, but I saw what got reactions from women, watching movies, and all these things. So I want to say I'm not here to shame you. I'm not here to disrespect you. I'm here to challenge a dangerous lie that has led to a lifestyle that too many of us were taught early. And that is that violence is equal to manhood, or that your manhood is determined by how violent and overly aggressive you are. That if you don't react to situations aggressively, you're weak. That if you don't respond by pulling out the heat or ready to knuckle up or some type of force, you're not a man. That respect is something you take instead of something you cultivate and build. And these lies, I want to be very real with you. And I'm pretty sure I'm not telling you anything you don't kind of already know. But these lies about beating people up, busting guns, robbing people, hurting people, taking people's stuff, humiliating people on the block, these lies and our acceptance of them have cost us our freedom, many of us, some men, their families, their futures, and yes, their very lives. And so it's time that somebody, we see this, we complain in the dark, we complain in private at our family get-togethers, we grumbling about what we don't like. Listen, it's time to take this out the private space and make this public. We have to address these things and address them honestly and address them from a place of love. Coming from somebody that has love for the community, somebody that serves the community and wants the best for the community, not like some outside, so-called expert that doesn't love us and doesn't see us, right? So let's start here. Somewhere along the line, manhood got confused with hyper-aggression and hyper-violence. Movies, music, street culture, and even some of the things our own families told us, right? The same story. A man is supposed to be hard at all times, pause. A man is supposed to be quick to anger, ready to fight, always willing to prove his manhood. And if someone disrespects you, especially in public, and especially around women, you're supposed to respond with force. You're supposed to smash that. Pause. But here's the truth. Most men weren't taught right when it comes to manhood. And most of the violent acts that people commit, that our men are committing, really have nothing to do with survival, but they all have a whole lot to do with ego. Now, ego is necessary. Without an ego, you wouldn't have any initiative. You wouldn't think of doing things to better yourself. But when ego is on steroids, it becomes toxic. And your ego says, what that dude say to me? He must think I'm weak. I had a young brother tell me that recently because I was checking him on some things he said. Well, you must think I'm P, and I ain't going to say that word live. I said, wow. So your ego will have you thinking, I can't let that slide. I can't let him talk to me. Like, I can't let him or her correct me. Your ego will tell you, I got to show them who I am. They don't know me. How they going to learn today? Your ego will have you thinking, man, if I don't react, if I don't punch him in his nose, his mouth, and put his lights out, I'm going to look weak. And I'm here to tell you, having grown up in a very tough hood, that's not strength, family. That's insecurity, dressed up as masculinity. Now let's talk about who really pays when men choose violence, because there's a cost, to being this hyper masculine individual, this guy that doesn't take no mess, don't let people talk to him anyway, always got to respond, let them know who you are. There's a cost for that, because it's not just the moment, it's the aftermath. And I'm wise OG. Wisdom dictates that you always think about the possible outcomes of your actions. You do nothing without thinking about the outcome of your actions. Only a complete fool, if I can be very real with you, does things impulsively without thinking about it, right? So let's think about the aftermath of somebody says something to you that you could just been like, man, whatever. They kept it moving. You heard somebody's talking about you behind your back, and you could have been like, man, I don't care what they're talking about. As long as they don't say it to me. As long as they don't put their hands on me, disrespect me, or take something from me or mine. You get violent. And what's the cost of that? Jail time, court dates, long criminal records, lost jobs or inability to get employment, and plenty of lost opportunities. Young ladies, relationships with young ladies, done, gone, because you locked up with a bunch of smelly dudes. And many of our men, maybe some of you listening, spend decades paying for 10 seconds or less of uncontrolled emotion. And that's real. I saw a study, it said many of the violent crimes occur in less than a minute, sometimes 10 seconds. Somebody just loses it in that one moment, right? And next thing you know, they're dealing with a terrible set of consequences that they didn't think about. And it's kind of sad when you think about it. And even when there's no jail cell involved, no prison, there's still damage, because your constant anger rewires your nervous system. And what that means is you're in this flight or fight mode. It means you're always tense. You're always reactive. You're always on the edge. And that corrodes your body, gives you headaches, gives you pains, messes with your sleep. You heard? That's not power. That's prison and pain without bars. So what we're saying here is a man who can't regulate his emotions is not free. You're a slave, maybe not to some white slave owner back in the day, maybe not to some narcotic, but certainly you're a slave to your emotions. You're controlled by that which you're supposed to, as a man, control. Let's talk about relationships, because this is very important. Aggression does not build trust, it builds fear. A woman can't feel emotionally safe with a man who explodes over everything they feel is disrespectful. Children can't feel secure around a man who solves every conflict with threats or violence, or abusing somebody, or cursing people out, having temper tantrums all the time. And let me say this clearly. Fear is not respect. People may comply with you, and they may even avoid you, but they will not trust you, and they will not respect you, and they will not feel safe with you, and they will not follow you long term. Because leadership requires emotional discipline to be able to know that you could punch a hole through somebody's head, but you're not going to. That you could throw somebody about 10 city blocks, but you're not going to. You could break their neck, but you're not going to. Right? Leadership requires restraint. Love requires safety. And if your presence raises anxiety instead of stability and wisdom, that's not masculinity. That's serious dysfunction. And I want to make sure we're nuanced here. I'm not one of these either or type of dudes. Everybody has bouts of emotion where they act out of character. And some people do this every day. I want to be clear. 4 times in a given week. I'm not talking about the people who occasionally you take them there and they start, losing it on you. I'm talking about this is people's way of life, right? Now let's zoom out for a minute. Let's talk about now the community damage that comes from our thinking that we gotta always be ready to bust guns. I had a young brother tell me that I like busting guns. He tells me, and incredible. Like that's a good thing, right? All right. What does senseless violence do to our communities? Let's break it down. It removes men from their families, either through jail, through some psychiatric hospital, or through death. It normalizes violent retaliation, which doesn't solve anything. You know why? Because even the scriptures say violence begets violence. So you decide to go handle somebody violently, that makes you a man. Your name is ringing out in the streets. Oh yeah, he got bodies. Yeah, but for every one of those bodies, people retaliate, family. And when they retaliate, they might not get you, but they may touch your wife, your mama, your pops, your uncle, your kids. This violence, it teaches the next, this is really bad. It teaches the next generation, the youngins, younger than you, that the way they respond to life's challenges and difficulties is through hurting people. And I don't mean, we like to make all things the same. I'm not talking about somebody says something to you that you don't like. I'm talking about physically hurting people or destroying their property, having these temper tantrums, you slamming stuff, throwing stuff. And our next generation cannot afford to believe the lies that some of us believed and acted on. It's something to be said for people who are involved in things that are nefarious or, let us say, unethical or criminal, but they got the presence of mind and the love in them to say to a young one, to a shorty comes to me, I admire you, I want to be like you, and they'll say, the dudes, when I came up, the elders like that, they would say stuff like, no, you don't want to be like me. I live a life you want no parts of. Trust me. And they would tell you, I'm doing this because I felt, that was the hands out the card. What did they say? The cards I was dealt, or, I felt I had no other options. But you need to go to school. You need to start a business. You need to learn how to control your emotions. Don't be like me. That's how real men were. Even men that's in the streets doing crime. When I was coming up, those are the things you heard. They're selling drugs and you want to do that too. And you come to them, I want to get work. And they say to you, no. I see that you're doing your music. You stay with your music. I see that you're good in ball. You stay with the sports. Leave this alone. Every act of unnecessary violence weakens our collective. We can't build schools. We can't create businesses. We can't lead or participate in movements to better our condition when we are burying men or visiting them behind glass. Every act of this type of violence is destructive, not just to you, but to the community from which you come. You can't, and here's the thing, you can't claim to love your people while constantly hitting, robbing, hurting, attacking them. It's just, you can't do that. So what this brings me to is, We need to radically redefine the standard. We got to redefine manhood. Somewhere along the line, we got the wrong definitions. Somewhere along the line, we saw savagery and being vulgar or vulgarity, being unable to control your emotions as being good things, and nothing is further from the truth. Manhood is not about how dangerous you are, particularly to your own village and community members. Manhood is about how dependable you are. A man thinks before he acts. A man thinks about how what he's about to do will affect himself and those he loves. A man understands the things that trigger him. A man does things to protect his life and enhance his life, his own, and those of the people he loves. Strength is restraint. Power is self-control. Wisdom is choosing outcomes that don't ruin your future or cause your mama to cry or your daddy to have a heart attack or your lady to have to struggle 18 times harder because you're locked away in some dungeon. So ask yourself this question honestly. Who taught me what a man is supposed to be? Was that man bout it? Was he busting guns and robbing people and beating people up and taking people's stuff? And if so, how did that help him? Where did that put him in life? How's he doing? And is that the type of life or definition of manhood that I want to adopt? And if I adopt that, is that going to serve me, my life, and my family, or is that going to sabotage and possibly ruin my life and that of my community? So I'm going to leave you with this, youngins. Any man can react out of emotion or anger and hurt somebody or break stuff. Any man can fight. Well, let me be honest, some men don't know how to fight. If we're keeping it real. But meaning that any man can go to that action when they're upset or fighting. Any man can destroy. Destroying things is so easy. But it takes discipline to pause, take a deep breath, and think. It takes maturity to walk away. When you got toxic people in your face talking all types of craziness. Sometimes, and they'll say, oh, you walk away. Yeah, walking away in this context is intelligent. Because what it means is you're not going to be in a position to do anything violent to the person. Walking away gives you a chance to think and to calm down. That's intelligent. A fool will stay there and keep going back and forth. Walk away. Know when to walk away. Right? And it takes real strength to choose peace when your ego wants to respond to chaos because somebody said something. Your ego wants to go back and forth. And even if you decide to go back and forth, it takes strength to say, okay, I've gone back and forth for 2 minutes. Now I'm stopping. I'm not cooperating with that. I'm letting that go. That person will argue with themselves. I don't care. We owe it to ourselves, young bloods, our families and our communities, man. We got to grow. We got to heal. We got to do better. And we got to get out of these outdated, destructive definitions of manhood that didn't work for our fathers, didn't work for our uncles or our grandfathers. And we're repeating negative cycles. We got to stop it. We have to have the wisdom to be able to look at our families. Let's start right there and ask ourselves, what are the behaviors that my father, my uncles, my siblings, my brothers, my male cousins, what are the habits they have? And how did those habits either push them forward and keep them out of foolishness and nonsense and stress and violence and jail, trouble with the law every other month? Or how did it get them involved with those things? We owe it to ourselves, our families, our communities. We owe this to them, to all the people who sacrificed to bring us into this earth, into life, and who did their best to try to give us good examples and try to show us the way. Right? And remember this, as my father used to say, a word to the wise is sufficient, meaning I shouldn't have to put your hand in fire to teach you that you shouldn't put your hand in fire. I should be able to tell you that. And if you're wise, you say, I got it. You shouldn't have to smoke crack to realize you shouldn't smoke crack. A wise man can say, oh, you see what's happening to all the people smoking crack? See how they're acting? See how the community treats them? See how they're in trouble with the law? They're sleeping outside in the street, messed up their families and relationships. And you could just observe that and say, I'm not going to do that. So I want to get us to that place. Now, if this message resonated with you, I really hope that you share it with another man. Share these lives and these short videos that I do. Very important. And I want to say as I close, thank you for listening. Remember to subscribe right here to the wiseog YouTube channel. We are growing rapidly, and it is my hope that this channel will reach hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in a few years. We gotta change the culture that we see out here. If you a brother listening to this and you're on lockdown, I expect you to share this with people. If something hits you, share it with the brothers and brothers behind the wall. If you're a brother that's here on the outside and you're listening, and you got young men that you run with that's involved in the foolishness, you might want to tell them they need to listen to some of this. Share your thoughts about it. Listen to it together. Discuss it. Debate it. But we got to change the culture. Got to change the culture. We were not put on this earth to be underneath anybody. We were not put on this earth to constantly be locked in cages like animals. We were put on this earth to grow, to transform, to build, and to live life with happiness and fulfillment. This is wiseog giving that real talk for real men trying to make real moves. wiseog out.